Hello and welcome to PoMoArts. Tonight we are streaming live with a virtual exhibition and talk for Waterscapes, and I'm Janice Cotter, Gallery Manager. At PoMoArts, we've started an internal organization-wide mandatory process of equity, diversity, and inclusion training, organizational decolonization practices training, and we are working towards developing a respectful territorial acknowledgement. We recognize this is just the first step and that we have a long way to go, including the building of respectful relationships with local Coast Salish nations in our community. Before we start, I'd like to thank PoMoArts Board of Directors, as well as our longtime supporters, the City of Port Moody, the Province of British Columbia for their support through the Community Gaming Program, and the Government of Canada for their support through the Canada Summer Jobs Program, as well as Peller Estates and our 2021 gallery sponsor, Edgar Development. Thank you for joining us this evening. Waterscapes is a traveling textile-based installation that showcases some of the outstanding water stories and creations submitted into Waterlution's Young Waterscapes Youth Storytelling Contest. The goal of this project was to connect youth with water bodies in their areas and across Canada in order to promote water stewardship. The installation highlights talented youth storytellers and the visual artists who portray their stories. I'm going to stop the share for just a second. I'm delighted to have guests joining us from Ontario, Alberta, and around BC. Ella Swann and Kat Hill will tell us about Waterlution and the Young Waterscapes project. Artistic Director Christopher Mcleod will speak about developing the exhibition and introduce us to Jay Havens, one of the visual artists. The Waterlution Youth Advisory Board is a volunteer program for young professionals ages 19 to 29 to support the school program across Canada. I'd like to introduce a BC member of the Youth Advisory Board, Ella Swann. Thank you for joining us, Ella. I'm going to share the screen again and I'll let you speak.
All right. Thank you for having me. Yes, my name is Ella Swann and I'm a brand new member of the Youth Advisory Board. I'm joining you guys from Coast Salish territory, the Wasanich and the Kwungan speaking peoples in so-called Victoria. So I'm very grateful to be here. And I'm just here to introduce the wonderful Kat Hill. She's been a Youth Advisory Board for a bit longer than I have and is joining us from Calgary, Alberta on the traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Stapi, Ktunaxa, Stoney Nakoda, and Tsuut'ina nations alongside the Métis people. So she is a member of the Youth Advisory Board and she was a part of the Young Waterscapes summer staff team. Alongside running storytelling workshops as a Youth Advisory Board member, Kat also assisted in coordinating the Waterscapes exhibition, showcasing the winning stories from last year's contest. So without further ado, Kat Hill.
Thank you, Ella, and I'm so impressed that you learned which traditional territory I'm currently situated on. I was expecting to introduce that myself. So as Ella said, I'm currently joining you from the traditional land of the Treaty 7 First Nations, and that does include the historical homeland of Métis Region 2. As introduced by Janice, I would just like to touch a little bit on that Youth Advisory Board. So our volunteers aged 19 to 29, such as Ella, as well as myself, are running workshops, but we also have a number of other opportunities available to us. So alongside running these workshops, we are able to plan events. I had a hand in helping coordinate the Waterscapes exhibition that you can go visit at Port Moody Arts Centre right now, as well as judging the stories. We also got to take part in, or also get to take part rather, in our own professional development workshops. So it's a really excellent opportunity for us to develop so many new skills that will transfer into our own volunteer opportunities, job opportunities, future in general. And that's really great. Our Young Water Speaks program has been an absolute blast. It is still ongoing. So we are showing off the first year winners for our program. And how Young Water Speaks has gone is that we offer workshops in 3 different age groups. So we have workshops for ages 7 to 10, for 11 to 13, and for 14 to 18. They work on a variety of different skills depending on which one they are in. Of course, with our 7 to 10s, we keep it very light, very as active as possible. Our workshops, of course, with the pandemic going on, have all been virtual and are remaining virtual as it stands right now. Maybe fingers crossed that we can come join teachers in their classrooms someday soon, but it is hard to tell, of course. And so yeah, that's been really fun trying to learn as well how to run virtual workshops and keep them engaging for those students. Some of just like a little bit of a preview of what our students worked on in workshops for our ages 7 to 10, which does include grades 2 until 5. They are using things that they've seen near water, experiences with their families, and even parts of their culture to try and come up with their stories. They do lots of activities like character creation using like the tickle trunk idea. So like put a bunch of random things in a box. How can we use those to make a story, as well as movement activities? So one of my favorite activities that we do is to have them imagine something that is living, that doesn't have any eyes, and describe using one word, like how it moves. Because of course you can pick a tree. A tree doesn't have eyes. Well, how does a tree move? It waves back and forth in the wind. And I like to turn that into a bit of a charades game. And it's always a super fun time with the kids. And they can also draw their living thing with no eyes. They can incorporate that into their story. With our ages 11 to 13, so grades 6 to 8, they are getting a little bit more into thinking about themes and about genres that they like, things that come up in their general life. So asking them about what kinds of books they already like to read, what movies they already like to watch, and how they can kind of create their own story using those things that they already like, while also getting them to think about ideas such as events in Canadian history or current events as well environmental issues that can affect them. Of course, at this point, they understand stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end. There is always a problem to be solved. And I think a really good example of that one, you may be able to see it down in the right-hand corner of your screen. It's a story called Crawford the Fish. It was our winner for our 11 to 13-year-olds. It was written by a student here in Southern Alberta. I actually led this workshop. And at the time of their workshop, the Grassy Mountain Cold Project was like very prevalent in the news. And so you can see, if you go read their story in the digital gallery, you'll see that they were very affected by that story. And that is what they chose to write about, and how it could affect our watersheds and how it could affect the animals living in our watersheds. So it was really cool to watch students grasp onto something like that, or grasp onto a historical event, and be able to write a story about it. And then with our 14 to 18, so our grade 9 to 12 students, they of course work on stories, but a lot of their workshop is also based on leadership. So getting them to think about how they can make a difference in their communities using creative avenues such as storytelling, and that kind of stuff. And now we weren't just limited to workshops led by the Youth Advisory Board. There were a few special event workshops as well that we were able to offer. And some of those were led by other industry professionals or creative people. So some examples that we had grandmother Kim Wheatley, who is an Indigenous elder in Ontario. She is so great. She told us lots of different stories based on her culture. I can't remember offhand. I know she is, I'm 99% certain that she is Anishinaabe, but I do not remember which band she is from. So that is on me. But so many different great stories from there. We had Ali Rougeau, who is a very prominent person in the Fridays for Future campaign, telling students all about how you can change the world with storytelling. We had Cal Vonix, who is a rapper based out of BC. So he was doing kind of more musical stuff, getting students to learn how to rap, how to make beats, that kind of stuff. It was super fun. And then we had Rosemary, who another British Columbia based artist. She does a lot of poetry, and so getting students to kind of use lots of words of imagery to paint their pictures within their stories as well. Our students were able to write fiction or non-fiction pieces as part of the contest. Or I keep saying are able to write fiction or non-fiction pieces in any format. So we had written pieces, visual pieces. They were able to write a song. They were able to create like a small documentary or something if they wanted, that kind of stuff. Our only rule was that it had to contain a real body of water in Canada. And of course, after their workshop, they have about 1 month to submit those results. And so the workshop that we have, or the exhibition that we have here, is a culmination of all of our first year winners. We got to reach out to so many different schools across Canada. And this school year so far, we have done around 10 workshops, and there are tons more coming up. So we are so excited to be having that, and our contest is going until the end of March in 2022. That's all I have to say. I am happy to drop the registration link in the Facebook chat as well. And I may also be up on the, it will be on the Waterlution website as well. That's all I have.
Thank you, Kat. I will stop the share now, and we will talk to Christopher Mcleod, the artistic director for Waterlution. Christopher, would you like to speak for a moment, or would you like me to speak and share? I'll share the digital gallery so people can see the work.
Yeah, if you're good with sharing, and you can feel free to just slowly scroll through. I know we're gonna sort of go back to Jay so we can take a closer look at his work. But yeah, that's for anybody that hasn't had an opportunity to sort of work through it. This could be a good opportunity to get to the bottom of the page, right? Because sometimes it's a little more work. So, but thanks, Janice, and thanks Kat and Ella for coming out. And my name is Christopher Mcleod with Waterlution, and so I'm here, City of Hamilton, situated on the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. Happy to be here, and I think how I really want to start off by saying, so I came into this project a little bit later, in the sense that I focus mostly on the visual art side, and so by the time I came in, Kat and all the YAB, and the YAB, in case you're not sure what I'm talking about when I say that, is the Youth Advisory Board. I'd been running the program really very successfully. So my role really at that point was to work with a select team from the YAB who were really interested in being part of the exhibition, and determining how do we visualize these winning stories, right? What's an effective way to to put together so hopefully some powerful images that can tour and be installed in venues that are all very, very, very unique. And so we had weekly meetings for quite a long time, and we decided to go with a textile approach, just because the fabric is, for those that have the opportunity to view these in person, the fabrics really sort of contribute to the sort of overall feeling of the work, and that there's a good variety in terms of the texture and the sheen that sort of comes through, and even the thickness of the textiles that were used for each artist. So they have a very sort of unique sense to them. And so we like the YAB group that I worked with. We just really liked the opportunity to really mix it up with the textiles, and hopefully each venue could have some fun with the installs. And what we've been seeing is that they have been, so it's great. So you know, if you're able to get out and see in person, I always recommend that. It's great to you know, yeah, just get out into your community and try to engage with these works, right? So and I can say in terms of the selection of the artists, it kind of started with, so two of the artists, Alexis and Miriam, they actually are part of the YAB group, and they were part of the group that was working on the installation series, and they are both you know, visual artists in themselves. Alexis maybe required a little bit of a push, but in the end, you know, like the work that everybody produced, you know, it really it just you know, I don't want to say it elevated the stories, because that's not the right term, but it just, I think it gave them a new place to exist, and it also gave, I think, the stories another avenue for trying to engage with a public that is, you know, really very consumed these days by, you know, ongoing, like there's so much sort of visual data that we're dealing with. I think all the artists really did a fantastic job in terms of taking those stories and giving them a life that people can sort of connect to. And of course, what we're looking at here now is Marine Land, and that was illustrated by the author. And the author's name is, hold on a sec here. I have it. Marine Land, Azaria. Thank you. There you go. I never met her. She was a student, right? So that was the one artist I didn't select, right? But yeah. So, and then I think from there, you know, after that, we you know, had to sort of look at you know, other artists that would be interested and you know, that could connect with the stories. And my role really at that point was to reach out to sort of colleagues or fellow artists and try to put together, you know, my focus here was really to try to put together, you know, a diverse group of artists that, you know, were able to speak to the stories coming from their own very sort of unique cultural and lived experiences. I think that's really important when putting together group shows, to just be aware of you know, who are we trying to represent through these work, and who are we actually really supporting. You know, like the artists were commissioned to do the work, and that's being paid as an artist is super important if we want them to be working in this country. And so yeah, just giving an opportunity for you know, some are very up and coming artists. Jay is fairly well established. I would like to see, he may disagree with that, but I'd say he's an established artist doing some really great work. If you didn't see his Peacemaker canoe in Toronto that just came down, check it out. It's probably still online. But yeah, I think I'll stop there, because honestly, I'm really interested in hearing what Jay has to say about his work, because I reached out to Jay. We know each other from grad school, so that was you know, he took my call because of that, which is great. and I knew that, and I saw that when he was in New Mexico, when Jay was in New Mexico, he was doing some work on with digital projections, and I was like, oh well, there's a really great mix here. Maybe Jay would be interested in taking that technique and applying it to a textile. And I actually had a fabric that I was really interested specifically for Jay, and it's a thick, it's I don't know, my textile is really good, but it has a really nice sort of thick sheen to it. And so as you approach it, it's almost marbled a little bit. And so I was kind of excited to see what Jay would do with that. And you know, as usual, he knocked it out of the park. But I will throw it to Jay now, if you're good with that. I know you've got a 2-hour presentation on this, Jay, so we should probably get to that. And
yeah, buckle up, everyone.
Right. Anyways, I'm gonna throw it to you, Jay.
Cool. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, my name is Jay Havens. I'm Ganyenge Haga from Six Nations, which is a reserve back near Degarondo, Toronto. And I don't live there, though. I currently live on the unceded Coast Salish territory of the Sumanis Nation, which is located just south of Nanaimo near Chemainus. So Chemainus is the anglicized version of the traditional people that lived here for thousands of years, known as the Sumanis. So I'm very happy to come to you today from my studio here at my house. yeah, I'm happy to talk about this piece. It's something that Chris threw my way in the summer, I think. And yeah, I'm always happy to work with Chris and collaborate. We've done a couple of things prior and set up a couple shows previously during our grad school experience. And yeah, every time I go back to Ontario, I always swing by Chris's house to say hi. So it's been kind of an ongoing relationship we have there, a nice friendship, and I'm always happy to help him out. So I'll share my screen here, and just to give you a little closer look at what we're talking about. So this is the artwork that we ended up with. The poem is called The Little Blue Jingle Dress. I'm going to try my best in Anishinaabe to say this. I believe it's called Banji Ojawashko Jangawewe Mangude, which is, I know Mangude is like, it means pants or pantaloons. So I assume that it also means bottoms in this case, as jingle dress. I don't speak Anishinaabe myself. And the poet is of Anishinaabe background, I believe. So yeah, what I did here is, Chris is right, I was making digital artwork when COVID hit. I kind of pivoted my career from doing painted murals and live theater. So I typically design costumes and set and do some public artwork and all sorts of things. I teach students, so it was really appropriate, I think, that Chris reached out to me too. I do a lot of education, remote education things. And during COVID, I was living in New Mexico at the time, and I was doing more digital work, doing more work that was projected onto buildings. And I was teaching myself how to do this through an artist residency at the Knot Project Space in Ottawa. I had received a stay-at-home artist residency, so they funded me for a month to kind of advance my knowledge in the digital arts. So I taught myself how to do animation, specifically on my iPad. I had recently got an iPad Pro with the pencil. And so that's like a really revolutionary tool for artists, is that Apple Pencil. Being able to have a pressure sensitive tip is amazing. I probably haven't picked up an actual sketch pad to do sketching in like maybe 2 years now. So yeah, what I did is I created this on my iPad, and then what I'm using here, I will zoom in. So the Little Blue Jingle Dress, it speaks a little bit about residential school history and colonization, and coming back to the dance of jingle dancing during powwow as a way for resurgence. And it talks about some intergenerational, you know, there's a mother, a grandmother, and a daughter who's named in the poem. So I kind of read the poem a couple times and I sat with it. And as a stage designer, typically I'm making work that someone else has written for me anyways, right? Normally there's a playwright that I read. And so I kind of approached this artwork in the same method, where like I read the poem a few times, I picked it apart, I kind of sat with it and kind of thought and pondered. And what I decided to do is make a version of woodland art, because Anishinaabe and woodland nation, so the Haudenosaunee and the Mohawk, we are a woodland nation as well. We have a form of artwork that we've started making called the Woodland School. It's been around since about the 1960s or a little bit earlier, started by Norval Morisseau. And it's really a developing artwork now that people are starting to play around with and do their own thing with. So I've been doing it for about 10 or 15 years now. Most of my murals are a Woodland School inspired. And I thought it would be cool to do that because the woodland art is also Anishinaabe. Lots of Anishinaabe artists practice woodland. So I thought it was kind of a good marrying between the two, myself and Anika. So what I started doing is displaying, you can see what makes woodland art is this really dark outline. And there's like a flow and energy to it. And then there's also radiating colors inside. So you can see here on the dress. And because this was Waterlution, I thought it would be best to use photographs that I had taken around Lake Ontario. So Onondario is the name of, that's the traditional name of that lake, and it means, from what I understand, it means place of beautiful water, or shining water, or beautiful lake, something of this sort. And it really is that. I grew up here on the West Coast, but I had lived in Northern New York for some time, and I was working in Toronto quite often. So I was traversing back and forth, going around, literally around the lake multiple times in a month. And it's an amazing body of water. Being out here in the Pacific, where we can't actually drink the water and we can't do much with it other than catch fish. There's lots of resources in the water, but to me, I was enthralled by how that it's fresh water and it's so vast. You can't see the other side of the lake from one side, and that's so impressive to me. And it feels just like the ocean when you go up to it. So I kind of, throughout the years, have been taking a number of pictures as I come and go from that area. Being that I live and work in BC, I also travel a lot to Hamilton. So a few of these photographs are taken from the airplane landing in Hamilton. So essentially, these are photographs that I filled the different spaces with of the characters using pictures that I had taken. Because these are Indigenous people represented, I made their skin tones, photographs of bark, different types of trees. Here, this is a really beautiful picture here that this looks like it could be Hawaii, and it's like, it's Lake Ontario. It's absolutely beautiful. And then in the background, this kind of main picture here was one time I was traveling through Hamilton, and it was in the middle of January, and I had never seen the way that the lake freezes before. So for those of you who don't live around Onondario, the water freezes, and as the waves push up against the water, it like shoves all the ice up onto the land, like up onto the beach, and then it keeps happening and happening. So you end up with like a 10-foot tall iceberg where there used to be a sandy beach, so you can walk right up to the edge and look straight down. And so this picture here is one that I took, and it felt like I was in the Arctic. It was really amazing. And actually, just to let you know, this beach here, because you can see my hand right now, right, this little pointer, this beach here is the same beach as the one in the background. So that's kind of interesting to note. And then from Hamilton, you get a view of Degarondo. So I kind of put this in the grandmother's. This is the grandmother here. This is an older style of jingle dress, whereas the two younger people are more, like youth looking folks. And if you look in the grandma's glasses, we've actually got a residential school in one of them. This is the Mush Hole on Six Nations, where people from Toronto and that area would have gone to residential school. And then in the other one, we've got a traditional longhouse of the Haudenosaunee, or the people who have lived around Ontario for thousands of years. So it's, and then her bark skin tone is more of a birch bark. But you can see there's like water pictures in their hair, some sunset pictures, kind of where her heart would be is where the sunset is. And then as you work your way over to this youth here, we've got some more pictures landing around the lake. Because I lived in Ithaca at the time, I used, or for a while, I used to take a flight from Vancouver to Toronto, and then I would get on a very tiny plane and I would go to Ithaca from Toronto. And even though it wasn't that far, it would take an hour and a half because the plane was so small, and they wouldn't go straight across the lake. They would go around the lake. Because I guess if you are in the middle of the lake and you go down, you're kind of hooped. So a couple of times I went and it was kind of sunset or sunrise. I think this is all sunrise because if I remember correctly, the flight from Ithaca would leave around 6 a.m. to get to Toronto. And so these are all just kind of different cities. Probably some of them are Buffalo and Rochester, places around Lake Ontario. And then over on Lake Erie, there's a lot of windmills to keep the power going in that area. So yeah, they're just different pictures that I've taken, and I kind of filled in the space because it's a digital artwork. It was kind of my way of playing around with pictures that I already had rather than trying to paint. And I think it turned out really well. I really appreciate the opportunity to like experiment like this. Quite often, you know, I'm bogged up with work, and so if I'm making art, like I don't have time as a professional artist to make art as a hobby. Like I do it during the day because I'm paid to do it. So quite often I'm not given the opportunity where, like Chris said, well, do whatever you like do something digital because we're going to be printing it. So he kind of just trusted that I would make something that would be interesting. And yeah, I'm really happy I had the opportunity to be paid to like explain and to like experiment in this way, which is something that I don't get to do often, as what, you know, like I said before. Yeah, I'm happy to take some questions if there are any questions about this. I'll stop sharing my screen now, and I think that's all I have to say about how this artwork came about. I encourage you to read the poem. It's online. It's a beautiful, beautiful poem that this person has written. I think she was in grade, she's still in high school, I think. Maybe just out of high school. I can't remember what Chris mentioned.
Yeah, she would have been that age range. Yeah. I guess if I can ask a question, you know, I was curious, like when you first received the poem, you know, sort of like how did you feel like how did you feel sort of connected to it? Like was there anything specific that resonated from it for you when you read it?
I really thought that she tapped into the intergenerational aspect of the fact that the grandmother went to residential school, the mother went to residential school, and that there was like intergenerational loss there. I thought that was really good, but then that connection back to the water and the dress and yeah, and ceremony. It was really it was a really very mature poem for someone who is still a youth. Yeah, I was really impressed with that. And I kind of I was thinking, you know, right away, I was like, well, I'm going to depict a powwow dancer, which is something, there's such movement in there. Previously, I've done a mural of a fancy shawl dancer, and they've got really long tassels on their things. And what I had kind of thought, well, I'm going to do that again, but because what in the mural that I did is the fancy shawl dancer was like dancing and splashing in the water, and the fringe of their shawl had turned into drips of water. And I thought, well, I'm going to do another version of that image. And yeah, because it's a jingle dress, it wouldn't work. The jingle dress is a different outfit as far as powwow traditions go. Oh, and by the way, the fabric it's on is called velvet. And and what you're referring to is pile. So the thickness of it is the pile of velvet. So it's a type of crushed velvet because there's these little sections that push down. As a fabric person, I'm like a fiber artist too, because I'm a costume designer. So yeah, it might even be called velveteen because I think velvet has to be cotton, and this is probably a polyester one. I got to see this artwork in person in Sydney. I think it was its first stop, maybe. Sydney on Vancouver Island, just up the road from Victoria there. I actually stopped in and saw it because I'm only about an hour and a half from there. So we were down there doing some errands, and yeah, it was really cool to see it in person, having that I had only done it digitally. So it was really interesting to see it in person.
Yeah, there was yeah, thanks for doing that. I was not being an experienced textile artist, I had all the swatches, right? And I had you know, one point I had like, you know, 40 swatches scattered across the thing, and I was trying to tag them all together. But what for me was really interesting is that, you know, like, you know, we're in COVID still while we were producing this, right? So it was all Zoom meetings and digital files, and you know, giving it that sort of physical presence, you know, just really reminded me like that, you know, once we get back into this sort of safe zone of coming together, that we really need to do that, right? It's an important process and an important experience, I think, for all of us, just to, you know, to be in sort of healthy spaces to experience the work in its physical form. Because while you can enjoy the digital, like, you know, Jay's showing the digital image, it's, you know, even though it's simply transferred onto textile, it really sort of adds another dimension to the work. So But I didn't know if anybody else had any other questions for anybody. Yeah, Janice.
Actually, Natalie, our gallery assistant, has asked, what was Annika's reaction to the art? Has she seen it yet?
I have that question too, because we never spoke. It would be interesting. And that's also very similar when I'm doing theater. I don't often get to speak to the playwright. And I think it's kind of better sometimes, because when you do talk to the authors, sometimes they have their own ideas. And I feel like when you're doing a collaboration in this way, it's almost like you kind of have to like take away and do and think of it as a separate thing, you know. Playwrights often use the metaphor where when they're finished a play, it becomes everybody's play, because you're adding other people to elevate that artwork to another realm that they couldn't have imagined. And that's kind of the benefit of the collaboration there. But I've heard that playwrights often, so I'm curious to know if Annika felt the similar way. Yeah.
Carla, who's watching on Facebook, has said that the photos of Lake Ontario in the artwork make her yearn for home. She's from that area.
Yeah, I grew up out there, and then I moved out to Coast Salish territories, which of course has got its own kind of beauty. And anytime for about 20 years, I would go back to Ontario, it would just be visiting family. I wouldn't be there doing touristy stuff. So I just got to see, like, you know, my aunt's basement and backyard. And I really didn't like Ontario until I lived there and in northern New York, and I was working in Toronto. So I would be traveling around the lake so often. And, you know, my husband and I got to go camping and all these kinds of things. And I just had a whole new appreciation for it now that I've been able to walk, and like, it's the land of my ancestors. So it's kind of crazy to like be there, and like, I didn't have that attachment before I actually got to walk on the land and like hike the hills and get in the lake and go swimming and all that stuff. And now I'm like, I miss it too. I love that. Like, I just like, northern New York is so beautiful. And so same with Hamilton. I really love the escarpment, or in around the escarpment, all the waterfalls and caves, things like this are really impressive.
Thank you very much, Jay. I appreciate you going into so much detail about your process, and the seeing the work in person really makes a difference, because you're right, the textures on the fabric, the sheen, it is kind of a crushed velveteen. So depending where you're standing, you have different highlights and lowlights. It's very interesting to look at in person.
One thing I wish is that it was about 4 times bigger.
Yeah.
Oh, we all do.
I wish it was like a human size, like Jingle Dancer on there, and that it was like a 10-foot tall piece of art.
We'd have it right down the middle of the large gallery. Christopher, did you want to scroll through and speak to any of the other artists? We haven't really, I'm back at the beginning of the gallery, but if you want, I can scroll through and you can talk to each piece as it comes up, the artwork for it.
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do now is share the screen, and we're back at the first piece, which is the little blue jingle dress.
Yeah.
So the poem, each one we've put the poem in and then the artwork. So Christopher, I'm going to hand it over to you, and you can just tell me when you want me to scroll forward.
Yeah, I'd say Jay's done a great job of speaking to his work. So if we were good to scroll down, and then I might call Kat in on this too, only because Kat was she was in the schools doing the workshops along with Alexis. So I don't know, like, and maybe I'll actually do that right now. I know, like, Kat, in terms of having worked with Alexis and knowing that she was doing the workshops with the students, and I know Miriam knew, she actually taught the student that had won. Do you know if Alexis worked with the student that won this one? With
I don't know offhand which other YAB did which other schools.
Okay.
I know that Crawford the Fish was a student of mine. And I don't believe any of the other artworks were ones that I taught. It was, because it's, we're all like age 19 to 29. We all have very different schedules. Lots of us have full-time jobs. Lots of us are in university. So I think there were some, who were actually very focused on like other tasks, such as like event planning and such, rather than like, obviously with lots of the workshops being delivered to schools. If you work a 9-to-5 job, it's hard to teach a workshop when schools are from 9 to 3. So I'm not sure who did what. That's out of my.
Fair enough. Yeah. So what we'll do is when we get done to Crawford the Fish, maybe I'll throw it back to you, right? But it's difficult. I don't really want to sort of speak to each one because it's really as Jay mentioned, I was aware of the work that each of the artists were doing, and so what I could say with Alexis was, she's not working as a full-time artist, but doing visual art. And so the discussion that her and I had was, she wanted to do it, but wasn't really too sure. And so we kind of went through it, and I said, well, show me some of the work that you've done, and let's just start with that, and let's see, how you're feeling, what techniques you're using, and making sure. Another part of my role as the artistic director is to make sure that whatever the artist is doing, it sort of aligns with the budget. And it's sort of, and maybe that sounds a little bit odd, but being an artist myself, I know that often what happens is, you're told how much money you're getting paid, but you almost discard that and start being like, well, I want to do all these things. And if you actually do all of them, you end up making 25 cents an hour. And that's not what, with Waterlution and trying to, we're trying to commission artists and work with more artists. We want to make sure that they're paid accordingly. So with Alexis, it was really actually with all the artists, it was, like use the style that you're working in, that you're comfortable with, and just spend time with the story. And let that sort of speak to you. And I didn't work to over determine anything, in the sense that, like, so this is a single panel piece, and so the whole story is on one panel, and that really was an artistic choice by Alexis, right? So if we want to go to The Girl Who Saved the Water, and so this is Thomas Anderson, and so I know Thomas with Waterlution. We were doing some projects, Great Art for Great Lakes, and Thomas is from Six Nations, Haudenosaunee artist, and he is a full-time practicing artist. And so when this project had come up, I thought of him right away, in the sense that I knew that he was doing some really great work, and wanting to play more with the digital. So it speaks a little bit to what Jay was mentioning, in the sense that Thomas was doing, a lot of paintings in acrylic, and it was like, okay, well, are you do you want to try this? And I don't know if he was using the iPad or not, but I know that it was again all created on the computer, and it was really an opportunity for Thomas to really sort of test out some of the technology, and to create some work, and to and respond to the story. And what Thomas ended up doing was he did 3 panels to do the story, and then the textile, as you see when you kind of go through the gallery, is kind of above and below the artwork. Each layout for each panel was fairly unique, right? So I'm kind of scrolling through here at the same time, and then just going down to A Little Lake. We actually did this in 2 versions. We did this in English and French, and Jessie Kitchen, she's a local artist here to me in Hamilton, a recent arts, a Master of Fine Arts graduate, and again, trying to make a living as an artist, and doing some really great work. And I had commissioned Jessie to work on a different project with the Hamilton Arts Council, so I knew the sort of style and her approach, and the sort of whimsical approaches she has. I thought really it would suit well to Evelyn's story, and so it worked out really nicely. And again, you know, I really sort of left it to the artist to do what they do, right? And that's because it's nice not to have an abundance of restrictions when you're trying to do work. And of course, if they had questions, you know, I was always here to respond. And of course, Marineland, as we worked down, you know, that was the artwork was created by the artist, so that was really just a question of laying it out, and doing some fine tuning on the photos to make sure that you know, when we put them onto the fabric, that the reproduction quality was good, because of course these are, you know, these are the drawings done in class at a school, you know, in a classroom. It's a you can see like some fold marks in the paper and the scans, and honestly I love that only because you know, if you pay attention to those type of markings, like there's some staple marks in there. I contemplated at one point going in Photoshop and actually removing all those, because you can, but it speaks to the process, right? Which is the fact that you know, this whole project is about doing the workshops and working with different storytellers from different regions, and learning different techniques that we can all use to sort of express ourselves in trying to build a deeper connection to our water bodies, right? Whether that's a lake or an ocean or a river, you know, whatever sort of within your local watershed, you know, how do we connect to it? So this is just is the fact that so much work was done by the author in illustrating their own story. This was fantastic, right? So and then let's see here, get down to oh yes, our full French submission. And so my French is fairly terrible, and so luckily though, Waterlution, we have some staff that are in Quebec. I was actually just in Quebec City having a meeting with Elena, and she is her website's there. She's an exceptionally talented artist, always producing a lot of work, and like just really great. I love her style, and when I look at the website, if you have a chance to look at her website, what I love about her style is like the use of colors and like the tonality within the painting. It's some oil, some acrylic, depending on what the project is. And Elena, being a Waterlution staff person, she also did portraits of several of us that we use like for our you know, sort of social media handles that you have to do. So I really sort of reached out to Ellen. I was like, you know, so we have this. I know you're super busy. Like, are you interested in? And she was like, yeah, no, I would totally love to respond to it. And what's interesting with this story, which I've obviously translated into English and read, you know, is it's pretty dramatic, right? And so especially for the age range of the author, it's like, whoa, it's heavy, right? But Elena, I think she responded to it really great through the illustrations that she did, and that brings us to Crawford the Fish. And so Taryn, I don't Gadara, so I don't know Taryn. I've never actually met Taryn. We spoke on the phone, and so one of our venues that's going to be having this the textile installation in December is the Science Center up in Sudbury. And so in speaking to them about it, I mentioned that, you know, I was looking for artists and looking to, you know, do they know of any, you know, like hardworking, like just, you know, trying to get their foot in the door kind of artists. And so they threw Taryn's name at me. And so again, look at the work, and I was like, wow, like just wonderful, you know, just the layering and the sort of the style that Taryn has used to illustrate the story, and again the layout, because the way the text, you see his use of font is sort of very specific, and that's part of what Taryn did. You know, he was given the files and sort of layered that in there and did three very you know, distinctive panels that came together really well. Did you want to, Kat, sort of comment on our author for Crawford the Fish?
I don't have a ton to say. Again, with those workshops being virtual, it was kind of hard to like connect with the students like one-on-one. I'm sure it would have been much easier if I was, there to wander around the classroom and check in on how they were writing, rather than me sitting literally right here and just kind of staring at a screen and being like, okay, guys, how's your writing going? Like, it's a very different experience to teach that way. But I will say that this class was the one that kind of inspired a slight change in our workshop, because we send out, I guess, like pre-brief emails to the teacher just to say, here's the Zoom link, like, tell me a little bit about your class. What kinds of things are you learning across the curriculum? This isn't one specifically for English language arts class or for science class or for social studies class. It is very much a cross-curricular program, and they're able to bring in lots of different ideas that their students have worked on. And the teacher actually just sent me back a YouTube video being like, actually, this is kind of what we do. It's a little bit of an alternative program within like a traditional junior high school, but they do a lot of like outdoor and environmental education, which is really cool. And so I was watching this video and I was like, man, I really need to bring in like the stewardship aspect of it, which is, of course, was always the goal, but realizing like, oh, these grade 8s understand like that they can write, things that are about like coal mining, that kind of stuff. So they were the ones who kind of inspired that change a little bit, just like in our first stages of actually running the workshops and stuff, which was really cool. I was laughing when you were talking about Maleron rafting, which is the very dramatic French one. I had the chance to go up to another one of our partners, the Lesser Slave Watershed Council. So they are a small watershed northern Alberta, way north of Edmonton. And we had their exhibition on for one day in July. And I got the chance to go up there and just see how people like interacted with the artwork and that sort of stuff. Along with the exhibition, at some of our locations, we're able to offer additional activities so that our guests can experience their own storytelling and come up with their own stories, that sort of stuff. And lots of people, I spent a lot of my day translating that story, and people were like, how old is this student? Are they okay? And I was like, I've never met this student ever in my life. I'm sure they are fine. Grade 5s are very imaginative. I don't know if you've ever worked with them, but 10-year-olds, they love action stories. So highly recommend to read through that one, even if it's a read through on Google Translate. Yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about that.
Yeah, great. No, it's great. Thanks. And then we'll go to the water story. This particular, so Jessie Kitchen actually ended up doing this illustration for that. And she actually did it as a bit of a favor, because I was actually working with another artist that is here local to me. And, we had sort of talked early on and gotten the story over to them, had been connecting back and forth. But again, this was during COVID. And so, she was having a really sort of hard time. And so, in the end, it really sort of came down to, like she wasn't able to do the work because, she just was sort of struggling to get through the day. And so it kind of got transferred over to Jessie as a bit of not really a favor to me, but I just said to Jessie, like, we've had an artist that's not able to complete the work just because of, there's lots of sort of things that happening in her life that are, just taking up, she was just maxed out sort of emotionally and physically. And so, we had some talks, just about that. One thing about, working with people, it's important to try to take the time to, listen to where they're coming from and where they're at and how they're feeling and how things are going. And just trying to make it a personal experience. So I was really happy that Jessie was able to sort of respond to the piece, and I thought she did a great job with really very little notice, because we were heading to the printers essentially and trying to keep things on track, and so that's what we did. And then the last visual piece, because we do have the video as well, is the one that Miriam did, and she was part of the app and part of the exhibition group that was working specifically on putting the textile piece together. And she does work with textiles and does lots of different sort of techniques, in the sort of craft area. So she knew very well sort of how to illustrate the piece so that it would respond well to the fabric. And with this one, again, if you have a chance to see it in person, we printed it on a really sort of very thin cotton. Oh yeah, there you go. That's great. Thanks. And so it has a very airy feel to it, which sort of really complements the style of illustration she did on the piece. And for this one, I know some venues, like the fact that it's floating here is wonderful. Some venues are going to try to sort of mount it so it's a little bit backlit, so it sort of illuminates itself. And just having the opportunity to sort of work your way around the piece, again, I think adds just a physicality to the stories that are being sort of shared with us. Like when an audience approaches these things, like all of us together, working to produce the whole sort of installation series, we're trying to create an experience that will resonate and have impact, sort of beyond that initial sort of approach or consideration, and something that they can take with them and think about what is their own relationship to the water, and how would they express that, right? Because we're talking about storytelling, and now we've attached some visual arts to it. And so as Kat mentioned, with some of the venues, like where available with COVID restrictions, we've had some activities that that kind of went along with the installation series to give people an opportunity to actually sort of participate in that process of storytelling and just thinking through their own methods, right? So yeah, so it's great. That really worked out really very well. And then of course we have the water song, excuse me, and so this was the only sort of video piece that we had, but great job. Like if you have a chance to play it, do we have it? If you played it now, would it actually work? Could we all hear it?
I think you would.
Do
Let me know if you can't hear it.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Lizmo, and I'm in grade 5, and I go to North Queensmere, and my school is in the New Westminster district. My school is located in the Mcleod First Nation territory. I wrote this song because in my class we were talking about Indigenous people and how some of them don't have clean water. So we read this book called Nibby's Water Song, and it was talking about how Nibby didn't have clean water to drink. So she went around to her neighbors and asking them for clean water. Some of our animals are actually getting hurt by all the pollution and all of the oil that we're dumping into our ponds. Some of us might not notice this, but lots of animals in the sea are getting hurt by tires and plastic and so many things. And I wrote that song to tell people that we need to start taking care of our She was only 7 years old. She loved to swim in her big, big pond. But you'll always remember the day someone hurt her pond. Oh, she was swimming around, yeah, with all her little duck friends. And then she saw someone, the garbage just like that. Yeah, she'll always remember the day that happened. Oh, playing with her friends, and then this happened. She was really sad, really sad. She never come outside again. So it goes like this: can you please stop pulling our
Oh, we lost the sound. I think I lost the sound. I don't know if anybody else did.
Yeah, I've lost the sound as well.
Okay. There we go. Yeah, so yeah, thanks for playing that. I think we got most of it. I think the sound dropped, just like I can't hear the sound anymore. But you know, it's you know, the future really is in the hands of the youth, right? So when I see work like this, and just you know, sort of the ability to sort of connect to these topics, you know, in a way that you know, I think is, you know, is not heavy, but you know, you know, it has a deeper resonance, right? I'm always amazed because I try to think back to, you know, when I was this person's age, and you know, I'm just not sure if I was that bright or talented, right? So it's great that that you see this kind of work being produced, and so I'm always excited to be able to support it and get it out there, and it was also. I think it was just a nice addition to the textile pieces to have that sort of video addition in there, to complement like all the textiles as they sort of come together in each of the spaces in each of the venues, because the video will be presented very uniquely. So I can say one thing, you know, like a really huge thanks to PoMoArts Arts, because like the digital gallery is fantastic, right? I know, and Janice first sent it to me, I was like, this is great. This is really awesome. And then, of course, some of the staff of Waterlution are they going to keep this up forever? Because we really love this. We want to show it off. And I was like, well, let me check, you know. So, yeah, so it came together really very nicely. So I just want to say, Janice, thanks. Thanks for all the work that you and your team have done. So it's great.
Well, thank you, Christopher. The digital gallery will be on our website. It'll be archived once the exhibition closes, but it should still be accessible on our website for quite a long time. But the video from the artist talk will be will be on Facebook, and it will then go to YouTube after the exhibition ends. So,
Yeah,
unfortunately, I think we've lost Jay and Ella, so I'm not able to say thank you. Oh, Ella's there, Jay's here. Okay, my apologies. I just wanted to thank all of our guests. We really enjoyed learning about Waterlution and the Water Speaks exhibition from all sides. It's really informative to know what goes on behind the scenes and what went into the preparation that the youth board worked on. So thank you very much. The exhibition runs at PoMoArts until October 28th. So, and we are open daily. And so if you have a chance, I hope you will come and see it. And if not, I know it's running at other locations continuing through the fall. Christopher or Kat, do you have a list of the other locations?
Yeah, there's actually on the Waterlution website, when you go to the Young Water Speaks page, it has the full list, and so it's going to Science North in Sudbury. It's going to be at the Hamilton Art Gallery. Yeah, it's got several more venues to go. That kind of winds down a little bit come the new year, but we'll be seeing what we can do with the work after that. But yeah, go to the website to check it out. The full list is there.
That's great. And you have a copy of the digital gallery that you can keep as well, Christopher. I really would like to, like I said, thank you all for being here. Christopher, I know that the 3-hour time difference must be horrendous for you, so I certainly appreciate that. Kat, you're only an hour ahead. But Ella and Jay, I appreciate you, even in BC, being a part. I think this is the widest reach we've had for guest speakers at one of our talks. So thank you. And Jay, if you are on the mainland, please pop in and visit us.
I will. I was just thinking I'm actually shooting a film on the Kwantlen Nation in a couple of weeks. So I'll be over for near Fort Langley. So I can pass through that way on my way.
You go right by us, almost.
Yeah, almost. Just a little tuck off the highway. It'll be fine.
Absolutely. Oh, great. Thank you. I would love to see you. I'm going to say goodbye, but I'm going to ask our guests to stay on for just a second before when I close. And I want to say we will be back. Goodbye until our next virtual event on November 12th for the opening of our annual Winter Treasures Artisan Market. So thank you, everyone, and good night.
Thanks.